Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning back to the Davidson Hang podcast. This is episode 124 with Alex Knight. We actually met through Tony Robbins. He was my mastermind coach, and excited to have you on the podcast, Alex.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
Yeah, and I love the beauty of technology. We're actually what is it, 12 hours? No, more than 12 hours apart, right?
Yeah, it's like a whole day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It,
So,
well, it's nearly 11 o'clock here. What time is it for you now?
okay. So it's 9 o'clock
Yeah.
at
I like
night.
to always say to my US clients, like, I know the future. I'm ahead of you. Right. So if you ever want to do a deal, I'll give you the lottery numbers. You just got to share the winnings with me. That's all.
It's 14 hours, so you're 14 hours ahead of us. I
Yeah.
think this
Yeah. A whole day ahead of you guys.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to think of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's fun. Like we'll see 2022 before you. It's not, it's just not that we're better than you. It's just we're first.
Right, right. Awesome. Well, yeah, well, I always appreciated your positivity and how you hold people accountable. And yeah, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your journey to becoming a coach. I think many of us like aspire to be a coach or want to hire a coach, and I think a lot of people don't even know where to start. How did your self-development
Mhm.
journey start? Sounds like you read a lot of books. Yeah.
Yeah, I love reading. Becoming a coach wasn't it wasn't a calling. It didn't kind of, it wasn't something I went to university for and decided to study for. I started out in music. I was a sound engineer in the UK. I used to do the sound for a lot of bands in the Manchester scene back in the day. And Yeah, I kind of fell into doing sales because I wasn't making enough from doing the sound engineering. I got to travel and work with some great bands, but I wasn't affording to live. So I got into sales working with a telecommunications company. I'd actually just come back off a trip. I traveled around the world with my partner, Gemma, who's now, we've been together for 14, 15 years. And we came back to London and I needed a job so that I could pay the rent. You know what, living in London, super expensive. And we lived in Crouch End near her parents. It's a beautiful part of London, but it was pretty expensive, the rent. So I got a job working at Three, which is a mobile telecommunications company over there in the UK. Absolutely loved sales, found like I had a flair for it. Became the number one salesperson in London, absolutely crushed it. Was then kind of like, this is what I want to do. I want to be in sales. But after recently kind of traveling around the world, and we'd stopped here in Sydney for a couple of months. So we traveled in Australia for a couple of months, but we didn't in Sydney for a couple of weeks. We were like, we'd love to live in Sydney. And we're looking at the cost of a flat in London and what you could get in Sydney in Bondi Beach was completely night and day. And that's before the property market went crazy here. So we moved out and we got a great apartment. We stayed with some friends first, got a great place. And I was just like, I'm going to go and work for the same company. So I went to work for the same company in sales again, but they didn't have any sales positions available. So I was like, oh, I'll apply to be a store manager. I was super confident in myself. And I was like, I can be a store manager. And I got the job. Never had any management experience. Well, I'd managed teams as a sound engineer and done a little bit of management in terms of, with the sound engineering, with teams putting up rigs and taking them down and delivering them and getting clients. But I never really done sales management where I had to manage a team of people on a shop floor. But to my surprise, they gave me the job and I loved it. Absolutely love that idea of building a culture, setting the targets, helping everyone develop, and really love that. And again, I smashed it. I became the top performing sales manager in the state. I took this tiny little store that nobody could make work and I made it work. I made it one of the best performing stores, and actually changed the direction the three had at that time. They were going to go with this big model of opening big superstores, like the Apple model before Apple existed, retail existed, in major centers. But then they changed it, saying, hey, we can open these smaller stores in communities. And they actually changed it based on that. So I loved it, loved the company, was like, this is where I want to be. I want to become the state manager. I want to become the national sales manager. I want to become basically CFO. That was my goal. I was going to work my way up through the business, and they became an area manager role available, and I put my hand up for it, and I was the golden boy of the organization. So I just assumed I was a SUE, and they were like, no, we don't want you to do that role. And I was like, why? You know, I get great results. And they're like, yeah, but if we give you this region or this area, all your stores will do great, but a lot of your stores will still struggle. We think you're much better. Your natural talent is a coach. And I didn't really understand coaching at the time. There'd been a lot of talk about it in 3, but I didn't really understand what it was. And they were like, no, we want to develop you. We're going to send you on these courses, how to coach your team. We'd like you to go in and coach different team members. And I absolutely fell in love with coaching. There was a mentor, Fred Kaufman, who would come and do talks for the whole of the business once a year at our sales conference. And he was basically the sales coach. He was one of the guys. He got invited into LinkedIn. He was head of culture for LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah. Awesome guy. Love his work. He's got some great books. What's it? I think it's the Executive Handbook. We can maybe look it up.
Yeah, I actually have his book.
Yeah. Really loved his take on how to manage people, how not to manage people, you know, and overcoming the fear response. Used to use this analogy of being in this top of this beautiful mountain and looking over the mountains and feeling nice, relaxed and loving. And then, you know, a cougar comes out of the trees, and then what happens? And then relating that to what it's like in the work environment, where 1 minute you're on top of the mountains, you've achieved your goals, but then suddenly, because of changes in strategy or changes in management, you suddenly feel like you're under the threat. You don't act the same way. And basically, how to overcome that. So that's really where I started, and I was really fortunate that 3 put a lot of money into me, invested in my development as a coach. I got to manage lots of teams. Then, you know, that's pretty much where I started. And I've done that for business for a long time. I went to another business called Optus that do telecommunications Australia as well. I got to coach their sales teams and work with some amazing people. And really fell in love with the concept. Between that time, I had a time away from sales where I'd kind of fallen out at 3, got merged with a company called Vodafone. The culture changed. It wasn't quite the fit that I was looking for. And they, instead of coaching, they wanted me to actually go back into that kind of area management role that I'd wanted. You know, how strange how the universe give you what you wanted, and I didn't want it anymore. So I actually left and actually went to work with a charity called Musicians Making a Difference, helping them open programs for underprivileged kids in areas where we needed it. So Musicians Making a Difference do these amazing programs based around music that get kids in that are suffering from drug abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, whatever it is that they're challenged with, and use music as a way to help them express themselves and find their voice. And they're a wonderful charity. I fell in love with them because they worked with Vodafone. So I went to work for them and helped them kind of build partnerships for a while. And from them, I kind of really learned the power of believing in your client, because they really believed in these kids so much more than these kids believed in themselves, what they were capable for. And I saw how that kind of transformed them. And that kind of moved me and shifted me away from just being a sales and a business coach to kind of bring into that personal development world, into Tony's world. That's how I kind of really became a Tony coach. So that's kind of my story. I hope it wasn't too long and didn't bore anybody.
No, oh my God. What a small world that the same Fred Kaufman. So I work at LinkedIn, as you know, and we had a accountability leadership course that was Fred Kaufman created, that still goes on at LinkedIn today. That, you know, he's trained some instructors, and so, you know, they've started training us. So that was beautiful to do that business mastermind course with all these other folks from all over LinkedIn's all the different offices. So that was really cool.
Nice. I did a couple of his, I went through a couple of his courses that he posted on LinkedIn when LinkedIn did that before. I think, I don't know if they've changed it over to Linda now, but where you'd actually go on, do a coaching or a course through LinkedIn, and he would write articles. And I think there's a couple of videos involved.
Yeah.
So such a great guy, such an inspiring. So if anybody's not read him, definitely check out his work.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's probably one of the best. I mean, honestly, like one of the best I've seen in terms of online courses. So actually that's what I did for LinkedIn. I sold like those types of courses to business clients.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar. So I would recommend Fred's courses a lot of times when meeting with like training leadership departments and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And that's so cool. What was your favorite part about like living in Manchester and then living in London? Because I'm sure it's a lot different than Sydney right now.
Well, Manchester, that's where I grew up. What I loved about Manchester was the music scene. Like as soon as I got to 22, I moved out of home and moved in with some friends, and I just lived, ate, and slept music. I was working in a music studio. I got to work with some bands from Manchester that kind of went on to do bigger things. I worked with Elbow, only like lumping around their amps and helping them set up their stage. But the guy that I worked for did their sound for a long time. A lot of the other engineers that I worked with had got the opportunity to do their sound. Badly Drawn Boy was around back then, so helped get a PA together for a couple of his gigs. Of course, a few of the Stone Roses guys have been doing their solo projects. I remember one night I was helped with an Ian Brown gig where he basically, I think he did a gig in every single country in the UK. So Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and the last place he was doing the gig, I think he did London, and the last place the gig was like 3:00 in the morning at the Roadhouse in Manchester. I was there for that, and it was packed. So I just ate flat music. When Green Day broke, when they just won that, they'd just been on MTV, they just won like the best newcomers, and they'd booked a gig at the Roadhouse, this tiny little venue, holds about 200 people in Manchester. Before that had happened, and they'd blown up, and we had to it is in a basement, but the back road was lower than the front. So we could actually open the back doors, and people could actually watch from the street outside. But they had to watch it through the basement where we stored all the beer, past the sound booth, right? And you could just basically see just like a little strip of them jumping around on stage.
Wow.
So yeah, just music, being part of that scene, being part around the artists. And I made a lot of friends and enjoyed that. But at some point I just realized, it's fun, but it didn't feel like I was in the right place. And I think that's what inspired me to kind of go traveling. London, we didn't really stay there very long. We were there for maybe a year before we went traveling, and then a year after we came back. And then we were ready to Sydney. Sydney's different. Sydney's lifestyle. What I love here is that people are really into their health. I go down to Bondi Beach at 6:00 in the morning, and it's packed with people doing boot camps and going running and swimming clubs and these yoga practices on the beach. It's just absolutely rammed. It's a great place it's probably the most beautiful city in the world. Like, just cannot discount the benefit I have when maybe I've had 8 clients back to back, and they've all been really challenging calls, and I've had to turn them around, and you feel the pressure to create a breakthrough, and you get, right, I've got half an hour, and you can just walk down to my street, stand there, watch the waves for 10 minutes and come back, and I'm ready to start again. I'm ready to go. It's such a beautiful environment to be in. So yeah, it's very different from Manchester. They don't quite have the music scene that you get back in the UK or somewhere like Frisco or New York. But it is definitely a city where things are happening. Like everybody I meet is starting a business, is trying something new to disrupt the market. Aussies are very kind of cocky culture, which I enjoy. Like they're not afraid to take on the big boys. You know, I've got a lot of clients who are just like, you know, these huge people in the market. I can't really talk too much about that. You know, there's a competitor that's taking 70% commissions every time they do something, and they're coming in and completely disrupting it with technology. So there's that kind of energy here in Sydney. It's very entrepreneurial.
That's awesome. Do you think you'll stay in Sydney for a while?
I think, yeah, I think I'll grow old here. I think for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So I
I would
promise
love
I'll
to
visit
live
you one day.
overseas for a little bit, like go and live in Bali for a couple of years.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, I think Sydney's forever.
That's awesome, man. How about this? I'll make a commitment that I'll visit you eventually one day.
When you get vaccinated and you've got your Delta approved vaccine safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Passport.
Let's
Yeah.
wait till all that, and then that'll be fun, man. Yeah, I've heard wonderful things about Sydney. That's awesome.
No, it's a beautiful place in the world. You should come and open the Sydney office.
Ah, yes. We do have an office. I think we do have an office in Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I think it's small. There's only like maybe like 10 people in the Sydney office, but we do have
Nice. I'll go around for coffee when we're allowed.
yeah,
out.
that'd be cool, man. That's awesome. You know what's interesting? I noticed a lot of people that have experience in the music industry end up being really good salespeople. I think maybe it's because like you deal with a lot of setbacks, and you deal with if you know how to handle people, like if you know how to work with large crowds of people, I feel like you can do a lot, you know.
Yeah, there's lots of things going on there in terms of music is about it's basically, if you're working with it, there's lots of rejection. Even as a sound engineer, you go to your favorite bands, I really want to do your sound, but there'd be 10 other guys behind you also wanting to do their sound. So you get a lot of no's because they could take their pick. And I was in a band myself and did the whole gig around Manchester. That's where I really got into it. So I think that's definitely part of it, being able to deal with rejection, but also you learn quite quickly to deal with lots of different types of people and how to influence them to move them kind of in the direction that you need to go. I think that's really key. Artists, they can be quite temperamental, and there's a lot of things you have to think about to support them and help them get on stage at times. I think that definitely is a skill that makes you more entrepreneurial. It's definitely a skill in terms of coaching, is really how someone going to react to this environment. How can we make this environment as conducive as possible to get the best kind of performance out of this group of people? Because a lot of people think sound engineering is just, you just stick a microphone in front of the amp and one at the front of the stage and you just mix the levels. But there's a lot of work that has to go in to make sure they're comfortable on stage, that they can hear everything they need to hear, that there's no delay, that you're overcoming that delay that comes back when the sound hits the back of the room. And they've got the space that they need to perform safely because you've got all these cables and everything going everywhere. So there's a lot that goes into it. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And it's funny, right? Because I feel like even a Tony Robbins event is like similar to a concert, right? I mean, the energy, the people, the excitement, like, I mean, I feel like it's not too different than when I go to EDM concert and there's like thousands and thousands of people, jumping up and down and, like really working the crowd, right? Like he does a great job with that too. So
yeah, I mean that's like the standout is, people go to these events to learn how to develop and grow, to really help themselves. Like maybe there's a fear they've got to overcome, a limiting belief. There's something that's holding them back, or they want to answer questions and why they're here or what they're truly for. And you can go and listen to thousands and thousands of speakers and something intellectually. What Tony does better than anybody else is he takes that knowledge He not only makes it simple so you can understand it and you can make it relevant to your life, but he brings that energy that you get from a concert, that emotion, because emotion drives everything that we do, right? We like to think we're these intelligent beings that make intelligent decisions all the time. So, the way economic professors, right, decided that we would all, save our money, we'd spend it, and we'd make logical choices, but we don't. We make emotional choices. And that's why you need the jumping around, the high-fiving, the rock concert feel to really take that information at an emotional level. Now, other speakers do that really well in terms of meditation, more acceptable ways of doing it, right?
Yeah.
But any way that creates a massive amount of emotion when you're learning helps you really apply what you're learning and take something, rather than being somebody saying, oh, no, I should believe in myself more, actually believing in yourself more, right? That's the difference. And that's what I really love about Tony's events and where he goes with them. It's, completely unique in that.
Yeah, and I know, you've completed a ton of Tony courses. I know this is a hard question, but which one was your favorite personally out of all the ones you've completed?
All of them.
Wow.
All of them. My favorite course, I would definitely look. All of them are amazing. Date with Destiny has got to be probably the course to do in your life. If somebody, if people only had to do one, Date with Destiny would be the one. And if you couldn't go to a live event or you couldn't get into this idea of doing it online, then I'd definitely recommend Creating Lasting Change. If there's any coaches out there, doing that audio program is, it just brings together so much of the science of human psychology and how we act and how we behave, and makes it really simple and gives such a great framework for people. So I'd highly recommend that. So my favorite, definitely Date with Destiny. Nice. If it was an audio program, Creating Lasting Change would be a huge one as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna do Date with Destiny at the end of the year. So
yeah. You will love it. Absolutely love it. Like, you've done UPW. This is like, it's the difference between driving a really good sports car like UPW, like say Subaru Impreza, to driving the the Lamborghini, the best Lamborghini you can get.
Wow.
Right? It's just, it's night and day. It's like, it's huge. UPW is great for setting you up for something like Date with Destiny. Like, you need that experience, but ideally you need that experience first. But
it is going to be online, right, because of the pandemic, but I think it'll still be fun, right? I think Tony knows what he's doing. I'm sure he'll make it a great experience regardless.
Nice. Let me ask you a question. What's been your biggest takeaway from the events so far and doing the courses? What's been your biggest learning?
For all of them? I would say like UPW definitely, like you said, like had me really present to like the energy, right? Like physiology, like, okay, so every morning I do CrossFit. So for me, it's like you said, like the 6 a.m. people, like I'm one of those too. So for me, if I don't get in like a really good workout, I notice my day is not as powerful as it could be. And his priming was really good, like really just listening to like doing Tony Robbins priming and a lot of his, just as long as I have like a intentional, and then the mastermind questions, the morning and evening questions have been really helpful because it has me like really present to gratitude and abundance. And that, I mean, I live a pretty awesome life, but I think sometimes I need to slow down to like be present to the awesomeness. Because sometimes if I'm going too fast, like I don't really think about what I've created from the day before. But every morning since I'm doing that, I'm very present. Wow. And one day I created these results, right? So it just had me reflect like very intentionally,
Nice. And that's the thing, is like, most people, if you're living in Australia or America or England or most European countries, you're pretty much living an awesome life.
Yeah.
pretty much, right?
Yeah.
You know, there are cases even in Australia where, you know, we don't live up to our promise as a country, but, you know, despite the setbacks, pretty awesome with what we've got. And I think a lot of people forget that and keep looking at this Instagram life that they see where people are just posting the highlight reel and
Mm.
somehow feeling inferior or not enough, or feeling like life's unfair. And it's so easy because we're programmed by a 50-million-year-old brain, right, to look for what's wrong. Because
Yeah.
if we were going to survive and evolve the way we had to look for all those things that was kill us. We weren't the fastest
Right.
animal on the planet. We weren't the strongest. We didn't really have any kind of particular skill other than our ability to think and work together as a group. So we had to be very cautious about what was wrong. Well, you know,
Mm.
life has completely transformed in the last 200 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, the level of safety that we've got. And I think that's why we see these record numbers of anxiety and depression right now,
Mm.
is because we forget how fucking awesome and lucky we are. I mean, it's not just that simple, but I think that's a really good starting point for anybody that wants to work on themselves, is
Mm.
getting to a practice of gratefulness every day,
Yeah.
getting to that place, right? If you're not feeling confident in yourself, start with feeling grateful for what you've got.
Mm.
Start feeling grateful for the life that you have, the things that you have in it. And that's a great foundation, because you can't build self-confidence on all the reasons why you're not self-confident. You've got to change your mindset. And gratefulness is I just find such a great place to take any client that's facing any kind of challenge around anxiety, stress, overwhelm, to then moving forward from that.
Yeah. And it's
So I love
interesting
that.
because every person that I know has gone to any Tony's programs, even if it's just UPW, for instance, they're all very grateful. You know, that's the common theme. Like, you know, when you meet someone else that has also done Tony Robbins programs, like they just have energy, like positive energy. You know, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what made me sign up for these programs, because like I kept seeing all of my friends. I'm like, why are they so happy all the time? And then they were, you know, then I would talk to them and they're like, yeah, you know, I just did Date with Destiny or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a common theme. And you know, one thing I've noticed, and especially in the last kind of 3 to 4 years, when I really changed from just doing business coaching, sales coaching, personal development, is really noticed that the people that are the happiest are the ones that are most grateful, right? When they're
Mm.
like, oh, thank you so much for coming out and seeing us, or thank you for, you know, picking our daughter, you know, friends that's just grateful. And you
Mm.
go, oh yeah, there's a correlation here, right? And I
Mm.
honestly think it's causal as well. It's not just that, you know, people who are happy are grateful. It's that there's a cause behind that. Happy people have that ability to be grateful for whatever they do, and they verbalize it a lot,
Mm.
or they show it, right, by showing up when you need support, or
Mm.
you know, going and cleaning the beach when they do the beach clean, right, showing they're
Mm.
grateful for their environment, or they're going out and helping people in their community, like if someone's lost their dog, you know, helping that person kind of move through that. I'm just thinking of
Mm.
examples in my community, but you know, the people that really are the ones that have the most happiness and joy in their life. You know, everyone thinks it's the ones with the cars and the biggest house and the biggest boat, and it actually turns out I think it's the ones that have got the biggest gratefulness muscle,
Mm.
for sure.
Yeah, I think my second coach that I've ever hired, he went through a Tony Robbins program, and then he started becoming a coach afterwards. Well, he does a lot of other things. He's an entrepreneur. He does everything. But Thomas Wang, I remember that because he was just he. You know, you go on social media and then, you know, some people just post like the normal stuff, but this guy was like next level, like energy. He was just so passionate about everything. Like everything he said, he did it with like conviction. And I was like, dude, like I got to talk to this guy. So then I talked to him, and then he had me, you know, like right when I first started out, I was in a rut. I was like, for me, like tying my shoes would have been like an accomplishment, right? But he had me do like 25 things to accomplish every day. And I just checked it off. So I started gaining confidence every day. And then I went like harder tasks. And then he helped me really build my confidence. But yeah, I remember like when I first met him, like, man, I was probably
What's
like,
his name again? William
oh, Thomas Wang.
Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, yeah. He's an interesting guy.
I love that. I'm gonna geek out for a second. What did he start? What were the kind of things on your list when you started?
Oh my God, when I first started, it was like literally like wake up at 7 a.m. It was like it was a lot of stuff I didn't do. So it was like, file my taxes,
Brush your
pay off
teeth,
my
have a shower.
yeah, it was like super simple. It was like, intentionally put out my workout clothes like the night before and then put it on and put it like on your shoes next to your bed. So when you go out, like you don't have to
So
figure
that'd
out.
be a tick. You got
Yeah,
it. Tick. Right, got it.
exactly. Yeah, but I just remember that because I was just like I was so fired up. Like he was like, all right, buy a poster board and then like and then we'll work on it together. And then he's like, make sure you're in like an area that is not like you can just yell. So I went on top of the roof of my apartment building because I was like, all right, no one's out there. Right. And then, yeah, I just remember like being so excited, and like it was all about the physiology. Like he had me like just really pumped. Like I was just jazzed up like the whole time.
Nice. Nice. So where's your favorite place to do incantations now? Do you still go on the roof, or do you do them in the shower, in the car?
For priming or
Yeah. Oh no, when you do your incantations, right? When you're screaming out
oh
the walls. Me,
that's a
I do it in the car. So I'm always like, I wonder what people like think just as they drive past. Because I scream. Like I really put some effort into it.
yeah.
Um yeah, yeah. And one of the clients asked me for a demo the other day, and it just like, whoa. And I was like,
Oh, wait, I want to see.
right?
Can I see what it looks like? Not to push you on the spot,
No,
but
I really set myself up for an hour, right? Haven't I? All right. I'll
okay.
give you, which one should I give you? I'm the best there was, the best there is, the best there'll ever be.
Oh,
And that's pretty
cool.
mild. That's
Yeah,
pretty mild. Like
that's
if
pretty
I
good.
keep going, I'll go for like 20 minutes. I really fall in love with my incantations.
Okay.
Yeah, I really go for it. So sometimes I'm like kind of thinking, oh, I wonder if I'm like passing anybody I know from like my daughter's school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was the other one is I also know another coach who has actually got a mask that he wears that muffles his voice
Oh,
when he, because the more
yeah.
energy you put into it, the stronger the belief or the
Right.
focus that you want to have in a particular area in your
Yeah.
life. So the more energy you put into it, and one of the ways you generate energy is through your vocal cords.
Mm.
Um, Now, I also find that there's the low and slow incantations can be quite powerful as well, certainly for more introverted people, where it's kind of, I always say it's like the Morgan Freeman incantation, where they get lower, slower, and deeper.
Yeah, yeah. It's
My
like
terrible Morgan
Obama, I
Freeman.
feel like.
Yeah, Obama kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? It's whatever generates the energy, the power inside of you. So I'm always fascinated, when people do it. Can I ask you again? I know you're meant to be interviewing me, but I want to ask you a question. What makes a great coach? What's your criteria for success when you pick a coach to work with, or your business? The business you're involved with. Obviously, you're out there finding the best talent. What makes a great coach?
I think the coach in Landmark, they call it recreation. So
Yeah,
yeah, so it's if I come to you, like let's say I relate to myself as like mediocre, let's say I relate to myself as like 70 percentile, like, oh, I'm smart, but I'm not like the best. But then you see something in me, like I had a manager who was he never it was so weird, but he every time he saw me, he's like, Davidson, you have the potential to be the best out of all 4,000 employees, but yes, like you're top 10 right now, but you're wasting your talent. And he would only listen to me as that, and he would never let it go. I'd be like, look, Mike, I won this competition, and he'd be like, nope, like you still haven't scratched the surface yet. I'm just like, I never got it. But now I see it because I'm starting to see that in other people. And
yeah.
it's pretty awesome. Like it's a very empowering feeling.
Right. I love that. It's the first place you got to come from as a coach. You got to believe in your client more than your client believes in you.
Yeah.
100%. right?
Yeah.
And I saw that when I was working with the kids at Musicians Making a Difference. Like they genuinely, like with these kids would like, oh, dude, I want to, be an astronaut. Like, well, of course you can do that if you really want to work at it and study for it. A lot of them wanted to break into music and then talk about, you're more than capable of writing great songs and making great music and, encouraging them to go after their dreams where, even the times when they just feel like shit, like they weren't worth it, or they'd just written their first rhyme and they'd given it, they performed it at an event and they got laughed off stage. But knowing they had somebody in the corner that believed in more than them really kind of helped them build a platform. Really, really does. And I think that's a sign of a great coach is when you're able to hold that belief for your client, right? That vision for your client to keep stepping up and moving into, because success is about how quickly you get off the floor after failure. And to do that, you need to have that vision. You need to believe that you can get there. You need to believe that all the hard work and the heartache that you go through to get there is going to be worth it. And that's what a great coach does, keeps reminding you those three things.
And
what else?
I feel like what you do pretty well that I think all great coaches have is like just like really positive energy, right? Because I think you want to work with someone who like you want to like feel happy around, like you feel good, right? Not from a place of like, being like invalid. I think, I don't know, it's hard to like quantify it sometimes, but I think like certain people just have good energy and you can really feel that, right? But I feel like that's something that like you said, more business minded or more quanta people that like are more data driven, like they wouldn't be able to like, you know what I mean? Like put their finger on it. But I think that you are someone that I believe like has like good energy. And I think that's like half the battle, because then people are excited to meet with you like every week or whatever the cadence is.
Yeah. That's one of the ways I measure myself, is to make sure that I know clients are looking forward to the call.
Yeah.
And excited about it, because there's those times when they really like they don't want to call because they didn't follow through, like they ate the chocolate cake or they lost their temper with the team member when they said they wouldn't, and they're or they just didn't get to the assignment that was given to them. But knowing that there's always going to be a positive outcome on the call, right? I talk about this a lot with my group coaches that I look to for support. And one of the things I'm saying is I'm super high optimistic, right? Yeah. Honestly, like a client comes to me and says, I'm going to make $100 million in 12 months. I'm like, great, let's get into it. But what I've really learned in the last 3 or 4 years is how to take that optimism and say, great, you want to make 100 million in a year? All right, so bring me to the common sense corner and show me the business plan, the steps that you're going to get there, right? If you can show me how you're going to make the first million, then we can work towards, nothing wrong with 100 million as a target if you really, really, really want that. And we can coach on that and talk about that. I always laugh because I always know money's never the answer, right? But optimistic and with realism, right? Optimistic in the outcome, that we can always achieve any outcome that we set our mind to. Realistic in how long it's going to take us for it to get there. I think that's the key, right? So you're not just a cheerleader for your clients. Yeah, we can do it. Like, come on, just believe, right? Where you're actually then saying, okay, how do we break this down into doable chunks? How do we actually see, if you want to reach 1,000 people this year, if you want to change the lives of 1,000 people, I've got somebody who works with mums, right? You want to change the lives of 1,000 new mums. How are we going to connect with them on a regular basis? How are we going to get them excited and want to work with you? How do we show them that you are their Yoda, right? So they want to come to your swamp and learn from you. Yeah. And I think that's key. You've got to have that huge optimism, but you got to also have that ability to bring that optimism into the real world.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I think at one point I was very optimistic, but I wasn't, like you said, more I didn't have the accountability metrics to kind of get there. So I think surrounding myself with people like yourself that can really help you be accountable is key. Everything is better in partnership, right? In general, I think that's why I've had like 10 coaches in my life, probably in the last 7 years, right? But yeah, it's been helpful because then every single coach helped me get to a different stage, and some of them are better at certain things, right? So it was interesting to kind of not have to rely on myself, right? And really build a team around me to get there.
Nice. I always say optimism is a strength, but so is pessimism. The problem is when they're overused,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
that's where coaching really comes in, is holding up the mirror to say, hey, do we need to bring in some doubt here and ask some questions? Do we know how, do we have a plan of where we want to go? And I find it really interesting you've had 10 coaches, right? I think you're probably one of the only people I know in this world that's had as many coaches as I've had.
mm.
Because I
Yeah,
honestly believe the power in that. I have a coach for my health. I have a
yeah,
coach to
exactly.
work through, focus on coaching. I have a coach that helps me with my business, right?
Yeah,
I have a coach that helps me in my relationships.
exactly.
One, because, as a coach, somebody comes to me for business and then one day, it always happens. Especially, I seem to attract guys, business owners that have been in business a long time or just doing a startup. And at some point, they always
Mm,
want to talk about their relationship because they're not able
mm,
to, they're getting the results in the business, but then their relationship is suffering. And they want to know, how do I make that work? And we go into the whole what life balance thing, which
mm.
is always fun. Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting because everything ties together, right? But sometimes we don't see that, so we just tend to think, oh, Alex has been in sales. He was an area manager. He was, telecom. So it's like, okay, like telecom people would just naturally like go towards you, right? But then once we get beyond it, we realize like that doesn't even matter. If anything, sometimes it's detrimental that we have experience in that because we have preconceived notions. And I think it's hard for people to really get beyond that sometimes. They're like, oh, this coach, he coaches a lot of pharmaceutical companies. It's like, it doesn't even matter, but you can't really say that. Sometimes it's hard to say that to people. People will take offense and be like, no, like I only want to hire coaches that have had pharmaceutical experience. It's weird.
Yeah, you get that a lot. I've got a great comeback to that all the time. Just like, I coach in psychology, right? I
Mhm.
coach you to be the best version of yourself. And that doesn't matter if you're making sushi or you're trying to attract $100 million investment firm. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To show up as your best self, there's a psychology around that. There's a way of finding out what are your strengths and making sure you're leveraging those strengths to achieving that outcome. And there's a bunch of limiting patterns of beliefs that are stopping you getting where you want to go. And we are
Mm.
just terribly self-aware as human beings. It's super easy for any human to go and judge somebody else. And people do quite a good job at like poking the holes in somebody else's
Mhm.
psychology, but we're really bad at seeing it in ourselves.
Mm.
And that's what a great coach does, puts up the mirror so they can really dial down into their psychology and see it for themselves.
Mm.
There's a lot of coaches out there that will tell you, like they'll preach to you. I
Mm.
honestly think the best coaches are the ones that just listen and ask great questions.
Mm.
So, a lot of the challenge I get is I work with people doing what's described as group coaching, but it's really more training and mentoring. And then they come to me for coaching. They're very two different realms.
Mm.
In those arenas, like doing online training or podcasts like this, it's very much adding value, giving my thoughts and my feelings about how someone can improve their psychology or grow their business or improve their relationship. But when it comes to coaching, it's less about me kind of giving you ideas and more about helping you find out the path
Mm.
forward. It's like I give you the map and then you plot the route. So a lot of people, you have to really frame that up front. It's
Mm.
like you're Zidane of the, if anybody, I'm using football reference, then Zidane used to play for France, World Cup winner,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to teach you how to fucking kick a ball, but right, I'm not going to coach you on how to dribble or pass the ball. What I'm going to do is allow you to have the space in the room to kind of explore how you can grow and develop as a player in business or in life. And, that's where the magic happens with coaching. I
Mm.
think, that's when you've got a good coach, is when you as the client are finding the answers yourself, when you're having those ha-ha moments every day, because you're like, okay, if I was with my coach, what's the question they would ask me? Well, they'd ask me this. And that's when I really realized the power of coaching. When I started finding myself asking those questions back at 3, right? All right. So my area manager, who was my coach as well, what's he going to say about this? Okay. What's the question he's going to ask me? What will my answer be? And I'd start having little breakthroughs every day. Right. A lot of people want this kind of sage kind of coach who's going to dispel some kind of wisdom, like some kind of, guru. And they'll have this kind of moment where the heavens open and the trumpets sing and suddenly they're cured. Right. That, it does, there are moments. I have had times where people feel like they've had that experience with coaching. But I find the real benefit is just those little breakthroughs, those little changes in the way that you see the world, or the changes, especially the way that you see yourself, or the understanding of yourself, just that little bit better. Those little breakthroughs added on top are so much more powerful than that one big moment that comes in. So I'm always fascinated about what people think of a great coach is.
Yeah, I think in the US it's a much more common at least from what I hear, like it's a more mature market in terms of most people in business get what a coach is. I hear in like even in Europe and in Asia especially, right? Like it's a little bit of a newer thing where it's not as widely, like it's not as common. But I would say in the US, it's like most people know what coaching is, at least like executives. And
I think that if you go to an executive level coaching, for sure, definitely. I think it's now, and again, Australia is a very different market to the US, but I think it's the people are becoming a lot more aware of what coaching is and what it is, and the difference between that and mentoring and training. In just giving advice. I think that's the beautiful thing, and I just love the explosion of the last 5-10 years. The TED Talks, people are seeing the names like Brené Brown coming out doing her podcast and her book, and people wanting to do the work. Names like that, where people are coming over, what Oprah's done kind of in terms of getting people turned on to this idea of self-development and improvement. And the people that she's helped bring through, like Deepak Chopra. I think it's really exciting where people are kind of hungry for it and want that support and its growth. So what area of coaching are you most excited about right now? Like, obviously as coaches, we can coach anybody, anywhere, anytime, but what's the area that you kind of think, you're really excited about what coaching could do for that area, whether it's business, spirituality, relationships, building culture, business coaching for entrepreneurs? What do you think the biggest impact is?
Like what's trending now, or just specifically for me?
For you, what are you most excited?
I think what's interesting that I've been seeing is because I think a lot of like minorities and women have had a lot of like contexts around like, well, when like men are more, there's more leaders that are men and stuff like that, right? So I'm starting to see a lot of like the disadvantaged folks, where they're socioeconomic, like, they come from not a lot of wealth, or folks that have a disability, or in my case, like ADHD, who was like diagnosed with ADHD. I'm just seeing that people who traditionally, you didn't, even people that have like any learning disabilities, right? I'm starting to see them just being much more empowered. So I see a lot of more diversity of leaders and more resources being invested in these like underrepresented communities, whether it's like the Black or Latin communities. So I'm noticing that as like a pretty huge trend. So it's cool because like I see the more empowering conversations, right? It's less like complaining, and it's more like, well, how do we lift each other up? Like, how do we give people a voice? Like, how do we, so I think that's been really interesting to see in the last year or two.
Yeah, I think that's a great place where coaching can really support, because in that times when minorities have struggled to break through, let's say in entrepreneurship or just getting a promotion into a leadership role, there is this overwhelming pressure to conform to the established kind of, let's be honest, old white male, right?
Right.
Stereotype. So
Right.
to kind of conform to those values and beliefs that
Mm.
are already there and doing things the way that they've always been done. Where I think with coaching, it really helps bring out your skills and your talents in those communities. And, you know, especially the masculine feminine thing, you know, where you've seen a lot of women not be promoted into those leadership roles. And some women have got there by really stepping into the masculine role, right? But what excites me now is a lot of business women are using that femininity.
I like,
right?
right.
Really embracing, you know, the caring, the femininity and bringing that into business. And I think there's some exciting results there, right? I think Sarah Blakely is well ahead of her time in terms of the way that she leads her business and uses her femininity. Like for sure, she's got some masculine traits that she uses really well, but you know, she hasn't sacrificed who she is to build that business.
That's really good. Yeah.
And I think that's one area that coaching really supports is kind of like overcoming that pressure, because there's that, you know, I'm not good enough, right? That's the story that people get, right? And helping them stand up to, because there's bias in everybody, right? And if you're not white and male, then you're gonna suffer some kind of bias in kind of claiming the next step in the promotion, right? And it's not necessarily intentional, but it's something that you just need to be aware of and not take on as your story. And make sure that you disown it, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like, and what you said reminded me of just innovation in general, right? Like what you like about Sydney is just a lot of people that aren't afraid to challenge the status quo. And I think that's a great use case of coaching that people don't often associate with coaching, right? They might be like, oh, if I get a marketing agency or I hire a product, but people, it's sometimes harder to connect the dots. Well, like actually hiring a coach will help us be more innovative and actually tap into our creativity. I think that's not talked about as much as it should be, honestly.
100%. I think a lot of people spend money on consultants when they should be doing the work themselves because they're afraid of making those decisions, right? And they're afraid of not being the smartest person in the room, so they go and hire who they assume to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And where actually I think coaching can really help unleash the talent that's already in the business. And it's something I'm quite passionate about. Is the direction that I'm moving towards in my own coaching business is moving into the health and wellness space, right? I'm really passionate about building cultures that are not only successful for the business, right? Not only, you know, they're profitable, do they create great products through product innovation, not only they're great at marketing, but they're great because they build a culture that values the health and wellness of their employees and brings the best out of them. And rather than necessarily going out and getting consultants to help them with the next marketing campaign or the next product innovation, they actually find the talent within the business. Because I think that's one of the big hampers on health and wellness is that everybody's out there looking for a purpose, right? Which again is an interesting conversation. I always talk about developing purpose rather than looking for it. But people are out there, they want a why, and they get to a certain level in a business where they're expected to deliver a certain set of results, certain set of KPIs, but then they feel this disconnect and they start to get an interest, which interest shows me that's something that they could get passionate about. But the company doesn't allow those opportunities for them to really to move forward. Because a lot of people focus on and you know, I've had this experience myself, but a lot of people focus on the negative effects of a business culture, you know, the stress, the overwhelm, the people that are burning out. And I actually think that's the minority. I think the biggest threat is the people that are languishing. They're suffering, but at a low level, right? They're just kind of like, you know what, it will do for me. This job, you know, I'm paying the rent, paying the mortgage. Yeah, I maybe get some hassle, but they don't feel like they have that direction. And I'm really passionate about being able to take people from that area into the thriving zone. And that's where coming back to your comment around, you know, people have really struggled because their race, their ethnicity, their gender, how they identify, right?
Mhm.
I think that's something that we can take into account in our culture about a business, about how we operate and the opportunities that we give. I
Mm.
honestly think the more diversity you have in a business, it doesn't matter whether it's, ethnicity, culturally, the more diversity you have, the more richness of creativity you have to pull
Mm.
on. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the area I'm excited about right now, working with business owners to kind of really create those kind of empowering cultures where people are happy, healthy, and they're thriving, right? Rather than just kind of languishing zone.
That's a
I
good
think we work.
point. I, I think that's a fair assessment that not a lot of people think about. I think there's a really large percentage of the workforce that, like you said, is complacent, like just, be doing the bare minimum, kind of coasting by, kind of being comfortable, but they're not being challenged, they're not being pushed. They feel like they don't have the ability to express their creative ideas because it's different than the normal or what's been done the last 30 years. And I think those are the companies that tend to die and go out of business, right? Like I said, where all these new innovative companies that are more agile are able to step in because they're not stuck. They don't have these preconceived notions from being a company that's been around for 50 years. It's like, well, traditionally we've done it this way, so why change it? It's already making X amount of millions of dollars. Like, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, I honestly think it's a huge opportunity because we often focus in the health and wellness space, or the personal development space, and the focus goes to the people that are really suffering with depression,
Mm.
massive amount of anxiety, and it's kind of like, yeah, we're rescuing them from the river downstream, right? And I think we need to move a bit more focus to all those people who are stood at the top of the
Huh.
stream, are about to jump in, right?
Uh, I like that analogy.
Because what
Yeah.
happens is they find that place where they're okay, and it's hard to really want to give more to an organization when you come with excitement and ideas, and no no
Yeah.
this is the way it's always done. That's the classic one. Or it's just the feeling that you won't get listened to, or if you believe that it's not worth your time trying to make things better and just going with the flow, right?
Mm.
You're going to do that, because if you think that trying to make things better is going to make things worse for you and put you under pressure, you're not going to put yourself in that position. I think it's the
Mm.
responsibility of businesses to really understand what's going on underneath underneath the meetings that they're having in the one-on-one chats,
Mm.
where we have a system as a company that I'm working with called UDA, where they actually go out and they assess the health and wellness of your whole business.
Huh.
And through one survey, you can get this really in-depth, science-backed, positive psychology
Mm.
survey that really identifies where your business are and where each of the teams are, so that you can then put systems in place to address that.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's really where coaching could do the most good, if
Mm.
you like.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, even the industry has evolved like a lot, right? I feel like it's cool because coaching is one of those things that is always evolving, right? Even the core competencies for ICF change. And, I think that's good because anytime we're complacent, we're stagnant, then that's not a good sign, right? But I think coaching is so adaptive and it's so universal too, right? Like you said, it can apply for folks who are in the middle, or the folks who, like you said, who are already in the river, or folks who are leading the way, right? It's cool because it literally applies to everyone. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I don't. That's what I love about coaching. There's so many different facets. Hey, I just want to do a time check. What are you like
Oh
for
yes,
time?
yeah, yeah. I think this is a good place to wrap up if that works for you.
I am. Let's have a look. I think I've got a meeting. I've got another session pretty
Okay.
sure
We'll
straight
we'll
after.
we'll wrap it up then. Well,
Yes, I do.
okay.
So I have to be on camera in 5 minutes. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed it. We should
Yeah.
definitely do it again. I'll get
Yes,
you on.
there's so much to talk about.
We'll reverse it. I'll get to ask you some questions.
That'll be fun. All right, I'm down. Cool, Alex. Well, Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. My relationship with my wife has been so much better. Releasing my book, being able to just appreciate life a lot more and just noticing my energy levels. Like I would say those are all the takeaways I've had from like working with you, so thank you so much.
Oh, brilliant. And thank you for saying that. And, I love working with you. I just seen your determination to work through those challenges and really kind of nail down. And you were a great contribution to our group, inspired a lot of people in that group as well. So
Oh,
keep it up. And I'd love to see where you go with this new direction in your career.
yeah.
Excellent. We'll keep on taps and I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Cheers, Davidson.
Take care,
Thanks, buddy.
Alex. Bye.
Take care.